Okay, awesome. For those who do not know, my name is Sherelle Edwards. I'm a public school educator with the Ministry of Education. I currently work at Anatole Rogers as an art and design teacher, but my passion is helping train and mentor teachers. We live in a very uncertain time, not just with the pandemic, but in general. And the Lord had pressed upon me to do a lot of things that would assist with the motivation of teachers, to let them know that people still care, people still have their best interests at heart. And this month, the Lord was saying to me that, oh, someone said they remembered me from A.F. Adley. Yes, I worked at A.F. Adley for 12 years. And I moved to Anatole Rogers, this will be my second year. Had impressed upon me that we need to talk about the mental health of our teachers. Well, mental health of everybody really, but people are not realizing how teachers we're really struggling in silence. A lot of times people do not believe that we cannot cope because sometimes we make it look so easy. All right, and I can let you know that this transition from face-to-face to the remote learning was a very difficult one for many, all right? But before I move on, let me allow Mr. Harrison Thompson to introduce himself.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Sherelle. So for those that don't know me, I am a cognitive behavioral therapist. That means that I aim to help individuals change the way that they feel by changing the way that they think. Because you will find that most conflicts we have doesn't necessarily involve the conflict itself. A lot of the conflicts we have actually involves how we think about the problem. And of course, you know, what better time to discuss this type of thing than right now with the whole COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah.
And so it's been a tiring game. I am an essential worker. So I'm still working as normal, actually a little bit more.
Right.
Because there's a lot more going on now. But feel free to interact. Feel free to leave your comments as best as I can. I'm going to get to them today.
Very good, very good. Now, I was reading some articles. I've been passing the time just trying to figure out how everybody else was coping around the world. And I found that UNESCO had put together, they called it a teacher task force called to support 63 million teachers touched by COVID-19 crisis. And what really intrigued me was the fact that they had 6 points that they wanted to address. They want the people to preserve the employment and wages of teachers. They want to include teachers in developing the COVID-19 education responses. They want to include teachers in prioritizing teachers and learners' health, safety, and well-being, provide adequate professional support and training, put equity at the heart of education responses, and include teachers in the aid response. And I don't know, I was so taken aback to the fact that they actually cared about the health and safety and well-being of teachers. It said that teachers need socio-emotional support to face the extra pressure being put on them to deliver learning in a time of crisis, as well as provide support to their students in an anxious circumstance. I never thought that anybody would think that we would need assistance even with our mental health. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know. And UNESCO actually published that. And then I read another article where there was a teacher talking about everything happened so big, so fast. She didn't have an opportunity to say goodbye to her students. She didn't have an opportunity to wrap up the school year. Then another lady said she was trying to figure out how she could get her classroom into this learning environment, in this virtual learning environment, and it wasn't working. And she was stressed, she was crying, she just couldn't understand how to get it done. But when she realized it wasn't gonna happen, because like she said, we're a nurse, we're psychologists, not really, but you know what I mean, psychologists, we're police officers, we're teachers, we're moms, we're dads, we're everything to these students. So when you now get in an environment where you're just in a virtual one and you can't reach out and hug, you can't really talk to them too long because they have to go or they have something to do. It puts the teacher in a position where it's like, what am I supposed to do? I'm not used to this. And let me tell you some of the things I was hearing, Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
There were some teachers who are feeling very, very stressed. They're stressed because they don't know how to implement this virtual learning. They're trying their best. They're hearing people talk about them on the Facebook, not personally, but talking about teachers on Facebook, social media, how the teachers is doing nothing, not showing up for classes. When the reality is some of them are trying the best they can. Not every educator knows how to use a virtual platform. That is why training is necessary. That was one of the other things that UNESCO said. There needs to be training. So if you're not trained and this happens so fast and you have a teacher who's trying, she's becoming stressed or he's becoming stressed, trying to find a balance between home and online learning. I myself, I am a mother, a wife. I have a 5-year-old and an 11-year-old. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure the 5-year-old is going to come at some point because she needs to say hello.
Right.
So, you know, I'm trying to balance their schoolwork. I'm trying to balance my students' schoolwork. Okay? Then you have people with sense of guilt. This is a big one, Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
People they're feeling guilty because you're not reaching all your students. You feel a sense of almost failure because you're not reaching everybody. And when you do reach them, either you're getting poor reception from the parents. Some people have already been cursed out. Yep, we have parents who have already cursed us out. And then you have kids telling you that they're busy. They're not coming on. They have something to do. This ain't working, that ain't working. So they're feeling guilty. Also, some teachers are dealing with anxiety. They're anxious every single day, anxious. Not because they feel like they're not getting anything done. You're trying, and it feels like you're not getting anything done. And then, this is a big one, coping with trauma during the pandemic, because, and everybody can relate. I personally had 3 people pass in a month's time and none were from COVID. None were from COVID. Right before my first lock-in, my cousin was killed. Young boy, in his 20s, he was killed. My sister's mother died from cancer, and then my husband's aunt died from cancer. So I have 3 deaths within a month. And then a friend of mine who was also an educator, but in the States, a lady who grew her up, passed away, and she passed away from COVID. So how do we now deal with stress, trying to find a balance, sense of guilt, anxiety, and dealing with coping with trauma during this time, Harrison?
There's so many things that's going on with this because, you know, prior to this pandemic, a lot of us were already in an emotionally compromised state.
Right.
I made a post the other day on my Instagram talking about how COVID-19 is not responsible for breaking up of people's relationships.
Agreed.
But because we are now forced to be home, we're forced to interact, we're forced to communicate.
Right.
A lot of us are living with people that we don't really know, right? A lot of us don't even slow down to ask ourselves the question, do I know that person in the mirror? We have been so overbooked, so overworked, so overly anxious for years, months on end. It's become normal. It's not healthy, but it's familiar to us.
Right.
And now that we actually have the one thing that a lot of us have been wanting for years, which is peace, which is time, which is, you know, just an opportunity to kind of think.
Right.
We don't know what to do.
Right.
It's almost as if our humanity has been stripped from us. But even in the midst of that happening, we are still required to serve. We are still required to look out for other people, right? Like you being a teacher, me being a therapist, even though there is a lockdown going on, there are still people that are depending upon us.
Right.
How do we deal with change while we ourselves are changing? And the things that we are depending on is also changing at the same time.
Right.
It's an extremely dynamic environment right now, such that the things we were doing last week may not be the things we do next week, right? The approach we're taking this week may not be the same approach we take next week.
Right.
Take, for example, the lockdowns. We don't know when we're going to have a next one, depending on how the numbers look. We can't allow ourselves to develop expectations that are not real for the time that we are living in. And, you know, with me being on the front line in therapy, I can say that so many people develop unhealthy expectations that is the harbinger of stress and strain in their life. So if we can find a way to change what it is we're looking for and what it is we're expecting during this unpredictable time, we can actually flatten the curve of stress. You know, we talk about flattening the curve of the COVID-19 spread. We can flatten the curve of stress as well in our life.
That sounds good. But we're still to the point where we're trying so hard. We're just trying so hard, and You know, we don't know what to do.
Yeah,
And you think
we
that,
don't.
do you think that we have unrealistic expectations?
Definitely,
Mm-hmm.
because you think about fear, right? I like
Right,
the acronym of false evidence appearing real,
right,
meaning that a lot of what it is we fear exists only in our mind.
right.
So the brain can't tell the difference between something that is real and something that is perceived.
Mm-hmm.
The brain looks at both of those things as though it's real.
Right.
So our thoughts literally have the same crippling effect as waking up to a spider in your bed or a
Mm-hmm.
rat in your house, right?
Right,
It's the same exact thing. But we try to mitigate fear by control.
right.
The opposite of
So,
fear is not courage. The opposite of fear is actually control. What you are seeing now with people that are panic buying, people that are latching onto some semblance of normalcy,
mm-hmm.
that's a response to fear.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever we can control, we no longer have to worry about because it is under our management.
Right,
But the problem with management is that it only works when what you are managing doesn't change.
right.
What we are managing now is changing every day,
It's
you
true.
know?
It's fluid.
Yeah, it's fluid.
It's very fluid.
Our jobs are not as secure as they once were.
Right.
Income is not as predictable as it once was.
Mm-hmm.
Romance and love is not as predictable as it once was. And so we're not just changing in terms of income, we're changing in terms of identity, we're changing in terms of environment, we're changing in terms of how we connect and relate with one another.
Right.
So by and large, there hasn't been a book written on this. You know, just a couple of months ago, the Bahamas was one of the only countries on earth that has ever experienced such a super hurricane like Hurricane Dorian.
Right.
You know, with all of our years of going through storms, we've never experienced one like that. There was no book on, what do you do in the middle of something like that in a
Right.
situation where we are literally an island nation of 700 islands and keys.
Right.
So the goal here is not necessarily to know. The goal is to be prepared enough to respond to whatever tomorrow has for us.
That's good. That's good. The goal is not to know, but to respond to whatever
Yes.
tomorrow has. I see Miss Milford is asking if you could please repeat the point on flattening the curve.
Yeah. So what I was saying is that managing our stress is all about managing the way we are thinking. And because a lot of us don't control how we are thinking, we aren't able to flatten the curve of stress. So stress is one of those things in life that we cannot prevent.
Right.
It's a part of it, right? Get
Mm-hmm.
used to it. Get used to things breaking, get used to things not working your way. It's not about trying to avoid stress, it's about
Mm-hmm.
managing it. And
Right.
the best way to flatten the curve in stress is to manage the expectations that you have.
Right.
A lot of us have very unhealthy expectations that sets us up for heartbreak, that sets us up for stress. And if we are able to be aware of these ticking time bombs in our life, we can kind of flatten the curve of stress in our own bodily responses.
Mm-hmm.
Because you find everybody has different responses to stress. Some
Right.
people, they get tense, some people get headaches, some people lose weight, some people gain weight, some people break out. In order to flatten that curve, you have to manage your expectations.
Um, yeah, that's a good point, Milford. So how do you deal with that sense of guilt now? You know, like I said, I'm an educator. I'm coming from an educator point of view. How do you
Right,
feel? How do you deal with that when you're trying your best? Okay, they're giving
right.
you a list of numbers that you must call. Some of us over 80 kids, some 100 and something children. You know,
Right.
you don't have any minutes, first of
Hmm.
all, because I haven't put a package on my phone since school closed because I saving money because I don't know what's gonna
Right.
happen. And
Right.
then to add all these individuals to your WhatsApp, you do not know. It is not gonna happen because there comes a security issue. Okay, so and
True.
then how am I supposed to reach these individuals? And you feel guilty, you're trying your best, you're trying to send a message to this person and that person. Can you ask this one if this person in their class? Or if you have a student, you know if so-and-so have a phone, and then you start to feel guilty because you're trying. How do we deal with that?
So what we are experiencing here is the revealing of faulty management, faulty vision, and faulty planning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there is no system in place to deal with this type of thing.
Right.
Had there been, there wouldn't be so much scrambling. For example, during times of crisis, what we actually should be doing is being still. But
Mm.
because we don't have a foundation to fall upon, we move. Like you look at when a hurricane is coming, you shouldn't be out driving in the middle of a hurricane.
Right.
You've prepared. You've put up your borders. You've put tape on your windows. You've stocked your pantries with food.
Mhm.
Now you're still. You're waiting. But because we don't have a foundation and a platform, we are trying to create solutions while we are experiencing the problem. So we have to remember that the guilt is usually piling up on one end because one person didn't do what they should have been doing. They pass it off to another person. And so by the time it reaches to you, who is in direct contact with the students, you feel this heightened sense of responsibility
It's true.
and you're so hyper aware of your own limitations. You will find that guilt often comes from knowing what you're not able to do, but being forced to do it anyway, right?
That is good, Harrison.
If you put someone in an environment where they know they are not capable of doing something because they've had an experience of failure before or
Right.
because they've never been here before, you're putting pressure on them while they are hyper aware of their own shortcomings or their own limitations.
Right.
That is why you find people end up stressing out because they just
Man,
don't
come
know
here,
what to do.
please.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Sorry. I don't know what
No, that's
happened.
it. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, yeah, it's just saying that we are all in a position now where we are bearing the brunt of a lot of people's inability, a lot of
Right.
people's irresponsibility,
Right.
and a lot of people are looking towards the frontline workers for results when they themselves should have been responsible for that foundation.
Agreed. And I see Zena said here, I think one of the problems is the people higher up in education don't fully understand that there must be flexibility in education. There is too much
Right.
rigidness. You are expected to work educational miracles. That's good, Zena, with limited resources. It's the
Wow.
truth because you're expected to have a virtual classroom with devices that they never gave you.
So very true. You think about the culture that exists around education, right?
Right.
And you don't have to look far and wide, but it doesn't seem as though education is a priority at times.
Mm-hmm.
We speak about it as though it is such, but the ones who have the power, the ones that sign off on the checks, you're kind of left to wonder, what's happening,
Right.
because it just doesn't seem to manifest in a very tangible way.
Right.
We have to make sure that we are utilizing individuals on the front line so that we can get real-time information to know what are the actual problems,
Right.
not just the theoretical ones, but the
Right.
ones in terms of, does this plan work?
Mm-hmm.
Is it transitioning well?
Right.
Does this fit for your class size or for this particular school in this particular area in this division?
Right.
But that's not happening. So we have a leadership chain at the top who's very disconnected from what's happening. And then we have frontline workers who are very connected to what is happening,
Right.
but they are far removed from the resources they need to be effective.
That's it.
So people are working, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not really efficient. And that
Right.
leads to frustration.
It's true because we're trying the best that we can with whatever it is that we have, right?
Right.
And so we're trying to do this balancing act
Hmm.
because even though they didn't give you what you needed, as teachers, we still step up. But how
Right.
now do I go and I balance my family life? Because I'm using my device to teach somebody else's child, but I might have to use that same device to teach my own child or to
Right.
actually give my child content, and then I have to turn around and ensure that even though, not even though, turn around and make sure that they're doing the things that they're supposed to be doing in the home, regular
Right.
chores, going to bed on time. I think I've killed that though. My kids are so off. It's
Me too.
totally, oh goodness, no, I'm not doing a good job of that. So, but how do we find a balance between the two? Something that we can see ourselves as controllable and something that looks like uncontrollable to us.
Well, we live in a society that makes us focus on the parts of ourselves that isn't good, right?
Right.
We over obsess about our weight, about our looks. We over obsess about the parts of our life that are not ideal. And granted, this is okay,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the over obsessing over it that turns it toxic. So, as a parent, as a teacher, you have to be able to respect your capacity. Meaning that if you don't know what you have the capacity to do and to not do, you may overextend yourself because of you being a good person.
It's true.
I see
Absolutely
so
true.
many people, they land themselves in positions because they are good people,
Right.
but they don't have the capacity to execute what they've signed up for.
Right.
So if you know you only have the ability to do an hour because you only have one iPad, then you have to be very strict with that cutoff time.
Mm-hmm.
You have to accept that everything isn't going to get done in that hour. You have
Right.
to accept that you're not going to be effective with everybody. And you have to also accept that, a large part of this is the student's ability to extract from this what it is they need.
Right.
I think we have gotten comfortable with teachers being parents, teachers being psychologists, when that isn't
That
really how it's supposed to be.
exactly.
So now you're still used to operating in those capacities when really you don't have to do that anymore.
Right.
Us being on Zoom stops us from having to put out the fires now, because you're not going to have interruptions every 5 minutes from the kid in the back who's talking.
It's true.
You're free to just teach purely and just put information out there.
Mm-hmm.
You have to now see that, maybe I was creating codependence where I was training kids to rely on me for things when really they should have been taking the responsibility
It's true.
themselves. So it's not really guilt. You're going through an adjustment period as a teacher
Yeah.
where it's like, now this is how it's supposed to be.
You're correct. And
Yeah,
we don't even know we have a little break. We still, oh, I gotta try and do this. I have to try and do that. But we have a little break. Like
right.
then a teacher I heard, she said, give yourself some grace. Just give
Yeah, you
yourself some
need grace.
grace. I see here,
This is
Kirkland.
new.
This is new. Kirk said, yes, I had to implement office hours. Yes. Maybe I need to do that too. Trying to balance contact time so I can de-stress.
Yeah, I will be transparent. I made the mistake of accepting too much webinars, right?
Ah, yeah.
Because I'm saying, we're home, I have time, I could just slot it in.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't realize I ended up doing more work than I would on a standard work day.
Wow.
And, here it is, I'm home, I have a young 7-month-old daughter and a
Yeah.
wife.
Right.
These things have to be balanced. And I think we have a tendency to do more when we are home, because the traditional reminders or the
Mm-hmm.
traditional cues of work ending
Yeah.
or boundaries being here, like a bell or time, it's not as we don't respect it as much home.
Mm-hmm.
So I think implementing a lot of those work hours, a lot of cutoff times, and even setting alarms on your phone just to be reminded that, listen, it's okay to stand up, take a break, and go
Mm-hmm.
catch some air and come back.
Right. I see Kelly Brown said, I'm sucking at this. I mean, she's getting it all wrong.
It
We're
feels
not,
that way.
it feels that way, but we're all not to say not getting it right. It just isn't what we're used to, Harrison?
Yeah, remember now, when you are the first in anything, the majority of what you're going to experience is failure,
Right.
because it's never been done before.
Right.
Before the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdowns, we were walking on paved road.
It's
Everybody
true.
gets up at 6 o'clock. Everybody is to school for 8 o'clock.
Right.
Everybody gets off at 2:55 or to 4 o'clock, anywhere between that time. We mark our papers. We go home. We produce grades. We do
That's
parent-teacher
right.
conferences.
That's right.
That's what it's been. But now that it's something different, you got to understand that failure doesn't mean failure. Failure just means you're honing in on how to get it right, right?
That's good. Yeah.
You're
That's
going to
good.
run out of ways to fail,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually being right is going to become more of an available resource than being wrong. But we just have to weather that storm,
Yeah.
right?
It's true. Sally says
Yeah.
that's correct. We are still trying to work in the normal schedule into a virtual setting. Aren't we all
Mm,
doing that though? We're all doing it
wisdom. You
because
can't put new wine in old wineskin.
that's it. That's it. And I read, when I read the article, they said the same thing. Is like, well, that virtual learning or online learning, they have a different curriculum than a face-to-face learning. And if you want to do a
Right,
blended learning, that's a whole different thing as well. So we have
right.
taken the face-to-face instruction and literally thrown it virtually and said, this better work. Make sure I get
Mm.
them grades, because them grades got to go in.
Listen, Terrell, I had a conversation with someone about a long distance relationship.
Right.
Because prior to the 5-day lockdown, they had a face-to-face relationship,
Right.
and then with the lockdown, it became a long distance relationship overnight, even though they were one neighborhood away.
Right.
The problem is we are treating new things as though we would treat old things, and of course, they work in different ways. There are
Right.
different parameters involved. We have different limitations. The goal here is not to emulate this in a different form. The goal is actually to restructure this almost as a new thing.
Right.
So while you're continuing education on a digital platform, it's brand new.
Right.
Because on this platform now, with the stroke of my thumb, I can go from Zoom to Facebook to Instagram, and y'all wouldn't even know.
Right.
So It's like if I don't find a way to discipline myself and to understand that I am now working in a different environment,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to win. I'm going to lose.
Okay, Ms. Kindia Barr says, I miss my students and the contact time. Many of them have said, I actually miss school and I don't like this online thing. So how do you deal with that as a teacher? And trust me, these kids always guilting us. But how do you deal with that when your students are saying, I miss school, I don't like this, I don't like it?
I draw upon my own experiences with summer break where maybe at about August, I started getting tired of all of the time. And I wanted to go back into school, not because I wanted to do work, but because I wanted to change of pace, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I think because a lot of us don't know how to manage our own free time, we end up looking for something else to just occupy us. It's not like we're looking for something because we want to do it.
Right.
We're looking to not be bored.
Right.
And what this time home is going to reveal to a lot of us is that we do not procure our free time as well as we think we do.
Right.
Being on Facebook endlessly, you know, we go from Facebook on the computer to Facebook on the phone like it's a different feed. We go to the fridge 10 times hoping that some... Look here, I went to the fridge about 10 times hoping that chicken in the bag just manifests itself in the shelf, but it don't work.
No.
You know?
No.
That cold rice from 3 days ago is still there.
Still there.
That chocolate would have been in the back of the fridge from January is still there. We have to find a way to become more active in how we are spending our free time.
It's true.
And I think what's going to be very weird, but very necessary, is we need to kind of schedule our lives from what we're going to eat for breakfast, what we're going to eat for lunch,
right?
What we're going to do when we work out,
right?
Walking around the yard. We have to find a way to kind of restructure our lives so that we don't just do things because we're bored, but because we do things because we see the value in them.
It's true. And Nakira Cartwright said, you are very right. Working, oh, sorry, it meant, let's go back up. Where did it go? Working from home requires more discipline than I currently have. Nakira.
Yeah, preach.
It's true. I think last evening, and I won't say what time, no, me don't say last evening, because that was about 2:30 this morning, Harrison. I decided that, I was going to get up because, it's 2:30 in the afternoon.
Right.
And I was going to have 2 bags of the little chips, I took them because I'm trying to be cautious with the COVID. Took them out the bag, put them in the baggie, 2 of them.
Yeah.
And then I walked and, I went in my room and I started eating. Then I looked at the phone. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's 2:30 and I'm sitting down eating chips.
Something you never do.
What am I eating?
In the regular scheme of things.
2:30 I'd have been in my third sleep. And it's a Thursday, you know what I mean? You're right. Yeah. You have to learn to balance.
My sleep schedule during the 5-day lockdown got so warped. I wasn't naturally feeling tired until about 2 a.m.
Right.
Because I slept when I wanted to sleep. I ate when I felt like I wanted to eat. I wasn't checking, the timing of things, the amount of things, the portions of things, even the types of things that I was eating. I even found myself changing in how I was shopping for food.
Wow.
All of this simply because I know that I was going to be home more. And here's why. Our home has a cue of comfort.
Right.
For most of us, right? Let me not say all of us. Home should be a place of comfort and refuge. So home is where you go to not be stressed.
Right.
Home is where you go to not be so structured. But to have to now implement structure in your home, that's uncommon for a lot of people,
It's true. It's very true.
I don't want to have to implement what am I going to eat for breakfast tomorrow if I'm on a break. I want to wake up and cook whatever I want to cook, however much I want to cook.
Right.
So, we have to find a way. I think we're going through the honeymoon stage here of experiencing this for the first time. But as the dust begins to settle, I think a lot of us are going to find that it is imperative for us to begin scheduling and procuring a lot of our time and tomorrows.
Yeah, I saw something where Kirk said, that's one of the attendants, he said the same thing, get your schedule together. And he was talking like to parents, get your scheduling together. We can't have any more excuses. You just need to get it done. We have to get it done. Get it done. I see Sophie Lewis said, I think that the virtual learning is an adjustment of less face-to-face and group interaction. You feel alone and segregated. That is powerful. I never thought about it like that.
No, that's very big because, in the Bahamas, we are a very social people.
It's true.
And by and large, I think there's often a delayed response here when it comes to what is going on in the world.
Right.
It's no shock that the world is moving to a more digital singularity, where we see that they are pulling up more self-serve machines and fast food restaurants.
It's true.
People are encouraging digital pay. I don't even need my credit card now. Once I upload my card to my phone, I can literally just tap and go with the look
Right.
of my face, and things are paid for.
Right.
So it's not like this is something new, but again, we are trying to manage how things are instead of preparing the next generation for what things are going to be. The writing has been on the wall for years that this digital revolution is coming. There's nothing we can do to stop it.
It's true.
We see how brick and mortar stores are now losing out to Amazon
Mm-hmm.
because, even though that this store is here, I'm still going to go online because it's more convenient. I feel like I don't have to come out of my home. I don't have to do
Mm-hmm.
certain things. I don't have to worry about inventory not being there.
Mm-hmm.
We are now seeing it face to face, and there's nothing we can do because this pandemic has robbed us of time.
Right.
This pandemic has robbed us of that opportunity to get ready. Now we're in it.
It's true.
And this is just simply showing us who was doing a good job of preparing themselves and who wasn't.
Isn't that true though? I think it definitely has exposed a lot of, I choose my words carefully because, I
Hmm.
still work for the people then.
Yeah.
Loopholes. I'm going to go with
Mm.
loopholes. A lot of
Okay.
loopholes in our system, in education.
Yeah.
Many
Yeah.
people are, they're not just jumping through these loopholes, they are literally falling through the loopholes.
Mm.
And then what do you then tell the child who tells you she's, I had a child tell me this, she's busy, right?
Right.
And then after I explained that I have to get grades, she said, okay, yes, ma'am. But she still didn't do the work. What do
Mm.
you do then? Like, I'm required to give grades, but then my heart ain't allowing her to give her a 0 because I don't know what she's busy doing. I don't want to ask her because that might turn into a court case.
Right.
You
Right.
know what I
Right.
mean? Because
Right.
you have to be so careful what you say to the kids because I don't know what is going on for her to even make the statement. And I don't want to pressure her. So what do we do in a case like that?
Well, I don't think there's any one answer to that situation because,
Yeah.
there's so many elements to it, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as teachers, unfortunately, y'all are going to be responsible for creating a new culture.
That's
We try
good.
to change cultures by changing how people act,
Right.
right? Because teachers usually have authority in the classroom, you don't have to worry about the culture. You just
Right.
tell a student to do this and they will
Mm-hmm.
do it based off of authority.
Right.
But there's a problem with that model. When you are absent or when authority has been watered down now, like over this digital platform,
Right.
you're going to find that another culture is emerging, a culture where I'm recognizing I don't have to listen to you in the way that I used to before.
Wow.
So, in order to change the way that your students are thinking,
Mm-hmm.
you have to change the experiences that they are having. Out of our experiences is created our beliefs.
Right.
Our belief systems is what we believe in. Our belief system says, this is the way things operate here.
Right.
Like when we
Right.
go to the States and no one tells us to buckle up, that's because the belief is that this is how things work here.
Works.
The
Yeah.
culture is working whether there's a cop on the side of you or not.
Right.
Out of our belief system comes our actions.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I said, most people try to change individuals by poking at the actions, but
Mm-hmm.
really what you need to impact is the experience. Once you can go through the strenuous process of creating a new experience, you will create a new belief system that will
Right.
operate on autopilot that you don't have to manage.
That's good. I think that's what we need, though. We need to change that way of thinking, and it's a
Mhm.
difficult task. I know we can't change people, and they have to change, and you can't motivate people. They have to be intrinsically or extrinsically motivated. They have to do that
Right.
themselves. You can do things that can assist, but it still
Yeah.
it still lies within them. So how do we then try to change a culture of children when we can't
Mhm.
change a culture of adults?
So you hit the nail on the head, and that is the
Mm-hmm.
loophole. You are trying to create a new culture where kids exist in a different culture,
Right.
that is largely in opposition to the new culture you are creating.
Right.
It's hard, unfortunately, there's a big part of this whole equation that you're going to have to mark off as something I cannot control.
Wow. That's good, Harrison.
Trying to manage something that you cannot control will inevitably result in you
Yeah.
going crazy, literally,
Literally.
because you're trying to change it, but you can't. It doesn't
Right.
matter what you do.
Right.
So instead of trying to change what you cannot, focus on what you are able to change, focus on what you are able to influence, and double down on doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that by doing that, several things happen. You can feel good about actually creating meaningful change.
Right.
Number two, you can see and weed out the individuals that are interested in learning and choose whether or not you want to double down on giving them more time. And number three,
That's good.
I think what you do is you create an environment where people feel more inclined to take responsibility for themselves.
Right.
So over time, and it's not a plug and play type of thing. Of course, it's going
Right.
to look different for
Mm-hmm.
every teacher, every personality, every school.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to give yourself grace to at least try something because, you said motivation. Motivation can't happen until there has first been action.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in order for motivation to happen, you have to start somewhere.
Right. It's true. All right. So me and Harrison have been talking for quite some time. This is the time we're going to give you an opportunity either to express yourself or you can ask a question. What we're going to do is if you want to open your mic, I'll ask you to raise your hand and then I would let you raise your mic. I was trying to watch okay, make sure, tell us who you are and then you can speak. I like to see it's Galaxy J4. We're having a difficulty hearing you. Hello?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's open by mistake. Okay, so we'll go ahead and close that. Okay, anybody else would like to ask any question? Okay, Aubrey. Let me see. Aubrey, go ahead.
No, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to log on.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. Anybody else? Let's go through the comments. I think everybody probably too shy to talk. Oh, I see.
The chat room is lit.
It's lit. Okay. I see somebody here said this is a good one, Harrison. This YouTube and TikTok. Miss Watkins said they can get on YouTube and TikTok, but not necessarily use educational resources appropriately. I think the discussion started because I think Zena said that there was an assumption that all the kids know how to use the devices. But now
Right.
Watkins is saying, but they know how to get on YouTube and TikTok. What do you feel about that? How do you feel about that?
I think, social media apps, because that's exactly what that is. They are designed for ease of use.
Right.
The quicker you can pick up your phone and create a video and have that video go from a recording to content, the better it is for entertainment.
Right.
Of course, educational platforms are not social media. There are social components to it, but it is not social media. And we have to remember that by and large, an educational platform is going to be used by someone who is trying to get educated.
Mm-hmm.
So you're still going to find it's the same problem where you have kids that aren't necessarily interested in learning, but they're in the classroom.
Right.
Or kids that are being forced to take a certain type of subject or elective and really they may not want to.
Right.
The goal, I think, is how can we not copy education in terms of what we have been doing, but how can we recreate education to now be more interactive, right?
Right.
Like these teachers that are good with video and editing, who are going to be able to create videos now every Friday to talk about, integers or
right.
how the cytoplasm in a cell gives it structure.
Right.
What else do I remember? Or the chemical equation for photosynthesis, C6H12O6 or something like that.
Okay, yeah, you know more than me on that.
But what's so interesting is those same things I quoted to you were taught to me by teachers who were very non-traditional.
There you go.
I remember coming into my classroom in biology and there were gigantic foam numbers on the table.
Right.
And the teacher would just shout out, "I'm a leaf, I am hungry, what do I need to do to eat?" And we had to take these foam numbers and letters, and we had to kind of line up in the form of a chemical equation.
Right.
And if we got it wrong, he started to increase the symptoms of starvation. And it was so hilarious, but at the
Right.
same time, it was so educational because we
Right.
were learning that, listen, something is wrong with our equation. So finding a way to become interactive online is going to now pull on the teacher's creative ability
Yeah.
to see how can we reach students where they are. I see teachers that are on TikTok right now creating learning material
Right.
for what it is they got going on. I
I
see
was
teachers
just
that
gonna
are
say that.
on Snapchat and
Right.
they killing it, you know?
Yeah.
So these are the things.
I was just gonna say, because Latoya said their motivation is different too. They want to be on YouTube and they want to be on TikTok. So maybe as teachers, we now need to get on YouTube and get on
Yep.
TikTok. Now, I'm not going to go on TikTok because my 11-year-old is on TikTok. So I'm not going to go on there. But I might actually assign a lesson where my kids create a TikTok using whatever elements that we're discussing for that day. So that's a good, I think Zena said too, that we live in an attention-seeking age. Hence all the dances, all the challenges the kids want to do to get views. That's true. That is very
Zena's
true.
spot on.
He's spot on.
I was in a class where we had to create a Facebook live broadcast, and we had to tag everybody in our class on there, which was at the time only about 8 people.
Right.
But at the same time, we have a tendency to work against the things that are already in motion.
Yeah.
The goal here is not necessarily to fight against that, but to see how I can use that to my advantage. I think joining TikTok is a great way. You know, you don't have to necessarily participate in a lot of things that are happening, but it does create a different platform now where you can reconnect students to education in very non-traditional ways.
Right. And Zena is Zena, open this mic, man. Zena is an excellent IT.
Yeah, she need to talk.
She need to talk. Educational techno.
She needs to talk.
Zena, open this mic. Please talk. Join this conversation, Zena.
Hi, everybody. I was chiming in on the chat. Hi, Harrison. No, the points that all mentioned were very timely. I can even say for myself, even though I love technology, this transition to fully online learning has still been challenging.
Yeah.
Because for me at my school, because I'm leading an initiative, because I was leading an online learning initiative, it was just natural that everybody adopt the initiative because of the coronavirus. So for me, I feel as if it's been stressful for me because I have had to answer 1 million emails a day from students, from parents, from teachers, from administration, phone calls, video calls.
Yeah.
So it's like, I have to be able to separate the time and know when my cutoff time is. Like someone can talk to me today about doing something for school, and technically we are still on Easter break until Monday.
Right.
And I told them I can't do it until Monday, and they wanted me to do it right then and there. So I think too, we have to establish, I think one of you mentioned that as well, establishing healthy boundaries for ourselves, because I still feel like some parents are under the expectation that we're supposed to be available from 8 to 3. And although that would have worked when we were in a regular situation, all of us are going through this pandemic. And as we said, things are changing every week. Every week something is changing. So the dynamics have to change for us as educators as well. I think we can make the effort to be there for our students and to try to connect as much as we can. But it's impossible, and to me it's unrealistic to think that we are going to be available from 8 to 3 o'clock Monday to Friday. So I just feel it's unrealistic. And sometimes too, I feel like the teachers are I feel like we're the only people working. I mean, no offense, but I feel as if we have not gotten a break
as yet.
Close. Other people are off from their jobs, or some people got laid off. I mean, I'm thankful to be employed. But I feel like the work has kind of doubled for us because, things happen so quickly. So you have to strategize quickly. Even if your school didn't strategize, you have to put a plan in place for yourself to create some sense of order. and you still don't know how the next month or the next couple of months are going to go as well. Yeah, so that's my 5 cents. But I think creating boundaries is essential for us to maintain our sanity during this time. You know,
You're spot on, Zena.
I agree. And then this culture now, at first everybody was so excited. Teachers, I'll give the teachers $1 million. I'll give them whatever they want. Now it's like the tides have turned. They're abusing us now. Where these teachers is? They ain't doing their work. So it's almost like maybe the parent has now become overwhelmed. Maybe the parent has become anxious.
Yeah, the parents are seeing what y'all have been dealing with every day for the past couple of years.
That's it.
And then they're saying there's job uncertainty as well, because I think an article was released yesterday talking about, I don't know if anyone works for Anglican schools, talking about how, you know, the teachers were going to be on half pay. So even for you, you may be in a teaching position where, okay, you may have gotten paid this month or last month, but still it brings up uncertainty for you as to how the upcoming months are going to go.
Right.
You know, and you still need to be able to meet your financial obligations as well. So I think too, I mean, that's something that people don't want to talk about, but that also too needs to be addressed, because if you can't commit to paying me fully financially, I mean, yes, I want to keep my job. You have to also understand that I cannot commit to being there from whatever hours I was originally working, because now I'm creative and find some other means to pick up the slack.
Right.
So I think that's going to be a conversation that's going to be happening on, you know, all of the communication platforms, the social media platforms that we're on, because it's real. And now it's affecting the teachers now.
Right.
The layoffs and stuff like that. Right. So, you know, so these are all issues now that this virus has kind of like brought about in terms of education and in terms of job security and how much is enough interaction.
Right.
You know, and I think a lot of times too, we kill ourselves with trying to go above and beyond, and we're going to fix it, and we bring all our supplies to school. Like I'm guilty of it. Bring all my supplies to school. All the paper, the devices, the pens, the pencils,
everything.
The kids don't have anything to worry about, you know, so we've been picking up a lot of the slack for the parents, you know, and now where there's this kind of like disconnect or separation now, a lot of parents have to step up to the plate and do what's necessary to make sure their child is still kind of like on track.
Agree. Well, I think Liana said, well, being somewhat new to various educational platforms that I only heard about the last 2 weeks. So see, I tell you, there's some people didn't know before this. So now it's as if managers expect me to be well-versed in delivery. No, sir, no, ma'am. It will take practice for this educator, learner, her. Now I can send via WhatsApp and email, but the major challenge is having consistent Wi-Fi and data. And that's the teacher. That's the teacher. You see?
Yeah.
Well, one of the challenges too, I don't want to take over, but you know,
go ahead, Zena, go ahead.
In our part of the world, in terms of our adoption of technology, and in terms of our focus on the importance of technology, is teacher training. The lack of having in most schools, and especially when we look at the United States, right? Most public schools and even private schools, they have people in charge of teaching, like who are stationed at the school, instructional technology coaches, who are there to help administration with implementing certain initiatives. So to marry the technology with the learning objectives, so it makes sense, and to implement proper plans in place to help teachers with learning the technology. So in the event of a crisis such as this, if everybody was already on a learning management system in all of the schools, right? And if mobile devices were continuously being used in school, right? This would not be an issue with us having to stop school suddenly with the face-to-face contact and just kind of like now, okay, we have to revert to the online platform totally. So here's where the confusion comes in now. So I think for a lot of schools and a lot of people higher up in education, they have to see now the validity of using mobile technology and using all of these different online learning platforms and seeing which ones work best for their school, because it can be a slapstick approach.
No.
And I've
No.
noticed that it's been a slapstick approach. Like, okay, just throw this Band-Aid, that's technology Band-Aid on this.
Right.
And this is how we're going to take it from here. But see,
Yeah.
we may be closed for a longer period of time.
Right.
Schools in New York are going to be closed for whatever the rest of the school year.
Yeah.
Miami-Dade has already closed schools. Schools in the other parts of the states have also talked
They
about
closed.
having virtual graduation.
Yes.
So I don't see when we're going to be going back to school realistically.
Right.
So it's a lot of things that have to be kind of like worked out as to how education is going to look for this period, and also how education is going to have to change. Our delivery models and how we do education will have to change after this pandemic, because we've already told our kids, okay, you got to be online to meet me. You got to be online to turn in your work.
Right.
So it can be this paper pencil thing when we go back to school, and that's it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to lose the kids.
Yes.
You're going to lose the interest.
Well, you're preaching
You know?
Yes, you're preaching.
Yeah, you're going to lose the interest.
Kelly Brown said, we're still in the dark ages and not allowing devices at school.
Yeah, that was supposed to have been a mandate from the minister, correct?
Well,
Moving on.
Charles.
Yeah, just want to
Go ahead,
join the
Charles.
conversation a bit. This is something that I did have a conversation with my principal about just yesterday. Because in terms of helping out some parents to sign on to the virtual platform, and some of them not realizing that they need to download Zoom and all that stuff in order to watch the live lessons.
Yes.
And it was a real challenge, especially not being there to see what they're doing, to guide them through the process. And when I spoke to my principal, I said that the way that we do education, it has to change.
Yes.
Because something that I got from the webinars too, I think it was the Edmodo one where Elga had actually said that we have to teach the kids to be good digital citizens.
Right.
And I said that's very, very important. I think that we need to increase the amount of students that are exposed to computer studies in the schools. And I see that's a lot of that we're talking about that a lot in the group chat. Because right now computers only an option.
Right.
And I went to a school where computer was introduced to us from grade 4, and we did it straight up to grade 12. And there were times when we shared computers, we didn't have access. Every child did not have access to a computer.
Right.
And this was a private school. So we're dealing with smaller classes, but yet still we were sharing computers. But at the same time, we were being exposed.
Right.
And I think that's what a lot of our kids are lacking, exposure.
And you made a valid point, Charles, because I only could speak for public education because where I taught for my entire career, but you select if you want to take a computer class. Not everybody takes computer.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, not everybody, even in the junior high. Most of us are clumped together because I am an options teacher. So is Charles, and we're all in the same block. So the kids have to choose between me, Charles, and the computer teacher. So they would go, some will go to computer, some will go to home ec, consumer science, and some will come to art and design. You know, so then, and there was a time when at AF Adley, we tried to have everybody take computer, but then, you know, things change, and, you know, sometimes people come in with another plan. Yeah, outlook. I got to choose my words carefully, Charles. Another outlook. And so things go back to how they were. But that's a very valid point, Charles. We are in the 21st century. Why aren't our kids being exposed to the use of a computer? Not even say the internet yet, just how to use the computer in the school.
I think there's a fair element there as well. I remember in grade 12, we were explicitly told to leave our computers at home because students were actually watching porn.
Right.
And they were engaging on a lot of other things. Back then, Facebook wasn't around. It was High Five and it was MySpace.
My goodness.
But at that same token, too, people were still engaging in a lot of other things. And so I think there's a fear around their own personal experiences with technology, or the stories that they have heard with kids and technology and how they were using it for bad purposes.
Right.
I think instead of dealing with the actual issue, they just cut the whole thing off out of fear, maybe.
And I agree. And especially now, you can actually curve all of that. They have programs you can put on the Wi-Fi that blocks those things. But I guess it's too educating yourself about it.
Right.
You know, they already have the fear, they already have the block. And so they're not going to go ahead and try to educate themselves about it because it's over. I've already said we're not doing it, and that's it.
Yeah.
Galaxy J4. Okay, maybe just opened by mistake. Charles, anything else? Oh, Charles gone too. Yeah, okay. Milkfoot is asking. He said, Sherelle, oh, hold on. Milkfoot, you need to open the mic. You know, you're scaring. Hold on, let me try to find it because this chat, like Tom Harrison said, this chat lit. Sherelle, could you please ask Mr. Dr. Thompson if he could give us specific tips on how to deal with give specific tips on how to deal with all of this as teachers.
So, I think teachers go to different environments. Of course, the government system environment is going to be different than that of a private system environment. And, even how it varies from class to class and that own teacher's personality and style. I think what's going to be most important as a teacher and as an educator, you have to become aware of what are your strengths, what are your limitations, and is there anything that you as an educator need to learn first? Because you can't teach something to students and maybe even parents if you don't become well-versed and educated in a lot of things.
Right.
Now, I think that there are some educators, and I know personally because they've reached out to me, who feel guilty because they don't know how to use Zoom or they don't know how to use online platforms as efficiently as maybe others.
Right.
And there's a fear that maybe my inability to learn this properly or as fast as others may make it seem as though I am incapable.
Right.
And that's simply not true. Of course, we also flourish in different environments. And you have to be very real with what it is that works best for you. It's kind of like love languages, right? You have to figure out what language, what medium, what mode works best for you so that you can implement that.
Right.
But you need to engage with purposeful communication. If you're not communicating with yourself, if you're not communicating with the people in your team and the people that are responsible for implementation, how can they know what to change?
Right.
If you are keeping quiet on the issues that you are having, change is not going to happen. Everybody's just going to be suffering in silence, calling it patience, when really you're just suffering and being quiet.
Right.
Right?
Calling it patience.
The second thing is you need to deepen your right understanding that what is easy for me to learn and understand is not easy for everyone to learn and understand.
Right.
I think we have a tendency to look at things from our point of view and we judge people based off of how easy it was for me. Right? So if 1 + 1 is so simple, a caveman could do it.
Right.
When someone doesn't know that 1 + 1 is 2, we look at them as though they have a problem.
Right.
When truly we need to humble ourselves and understand that just because I got here and it's easy for me to get here, it may not be easy for other people to get here as well. So as educators, make sure that the words y'all are using isn't one of isn't one of being overly critical.
Right.
But is one of openness and transparency, one that is imbued with love and grace, because everybody is learning. And you may be surprised to learn what you can learn, what may work for you by simply engaging in conversation with other educators as well. Number 3, you have to find a way to let go of the past. You have to treat the past as though it's not coming back at all.
Right.
Educators are simply taking on a spirit of tolerance because they believe that we are going back to the traditional classrooms. They believe that we are going back to traditional education. And that just may not be the case.
Right.
COVID-19 is literally changing the world.
Right.
Not just the Bahamas, but the world. So thinking, and again, this concept of expecting it to go back to an environment where you were comfortable is setting yourself up for failure, because that environment may no longer be real, right? And then lastly, you have to find responsibility for other people, but accepting more responsibility for the things that matter to you.
Right.
For example, if you know you struggle with let's just say online platforms like Zoom.
Right.
Make sure that you're going on YouTube and learning more about how can I engage with Zoom on my phone or my laptop.
Right.
Is there some tweaks, and is there some other platforms that I can use that may be more easy for me, right? They have platforms out there, a lot of them, I can't even remember their names, but some of them are so simple, where it's literally just plug and play. You give someone a link, they connect, that's it, they're on. Make sure that you're educating yourself in the way you need to, so that you can educate others and utilize the forms for what it is you need, like education.
Well, that was excellent. Sally said, I totally agree. We need to redesign our thinking process because things as we know it has changed. And Latoya, we're going to end with this comment. Teachers are learners first. All right, so any departing words for us, Mr. Thompson? Please let us know where we can find you. Give us all your contacts.
Sure. So I guess the last thing that I want to say is we have to let go of this pursuit for happiness. Right? Happiness all the time is very stressful to manage and maintain. Trust me on that.
Yes.
Happiness indicates that when I'm not happy, something is wrong. But when you think about how life is not about being happy 24/7. Life is about being at peace. Being at peace is about accepting that there will be things in this world and things in my environment that I cannot change. And that's okay. The presence of stress and the presence of things not going right doesn't mean that you are broken. It doesn't mean that you aren't where you need to be. It simply is an acknowledgement that you are living. So give up this pursuit for happiness, which is very stressful, and engage in the pursuit of peace. Because the pursuit of peace says that I don't have to be something. I can just be what it is I need to be, and that should be enough. So if you want to reach out to me, if you are on Instagram, you can follow me at HT4Real. That's HT, the number 4, and Real if you are on Instagram. If you are on Facebook, you can follow me on Harrison Thompson Official, or you can follow Harrison Thompson. If you want to go to my website and look out more about me and my digital school, because I have some educational videos about relationships as well, you can go to www.harrisonhelps.com. And you can find out some more information about that there. Or if you want to book an appointment, you can give us a call at 356-7983 or 4. Until the lockdowns, we are essential services. So if you want to come in, we have those available. But if you want to do digital sessions, we have that available as well.
Give us the number again, Harrison. I want to put it in the chat. 3.
Sure, it's 356.
Oh wait, hold on.
79.
Wait, hold on.
Or 4.
Sorry, I had a private message just now. Oh, thank you, Burrows. She faster than me. She already put it in the chat.
Yeah,
yeah, she faster than me. Yes. Great. Okay, I want to thank everybody for coming on, Mr. Harrison Thompson. I really appreciate you coming on and having a word with our teachers. We were falling apart. We were trying our best, and this has been very uplifting. And I see a lot of people saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. We all needed it, and it was very timely. So this ends this month's Teach Talk, Your Mental Health with Dr. Harrison Thompson. And I will see you guys next month. Look out. I have to pray on it to see what we're going to do next month, but I will be sending you your invites via your email that you provided. And we want to thank you for coming on out. Please, please take some time for yourself, relax, and shelter in. And if you have to go out, mask the virus. That's what I tell my kids. Mask the virus. All right. Y'all have a good night.